Most people never become the person they're capable of being. And it's not because they lack potential, not because they ain't working hard enough, and not because they don't know what to do. They fail because they quit right in the middle of the transformation. You see, changing your identity isn't like setting a goal. It's not a one-time decision. It's a process. And that process can be messy. At first, you're excited, you start thinking differently, acting differently, showing up differently, and then something strange happens. Your old limiting beliefs start to get louder. You stop seeing immediate results that it's working out for you. And the old version of you starts pulling you back to the comfort zone. And then eventually you enter what I call the void. It's that uncomfortable space where you're not where you want to be yet, but you're not where you are. And this is where most people give up on their journey. Psychologists actually call this the valley of despair when it comes to change. And people give up not because the transformation isn't working, but because they simply just misunderstand what's actually happening. In today's training, I'm going to break down the 4 biggest mistakes that I see people make when trying to transform their identity. And these are mistakes that people all across the board make. Millionaires, business owners, high achievers, corporate professionals, we all make these mistakes. And they're the same mistakes that keep people stuck in old patterns, old results, and old versions of themselves that they don't even want to be. And if you can avoid these mistakes, you'll dramatically increase the speed and certainty of becoming the person who you need to be to get to that next level in your goals and your success, whatever it is that you're chasing. So before we dive in, make sure you like and subscribe if this does give you value today, and let's dive into the whiteboard. All right, so the 4 mistakes keeping you stuck in the same identity over and over again. First things first is that if you notice that your life is not changing, maybe you're stuck in constant loops or plateaus in your business, or you start something, you stop something, you start working towards something, next thing you know, you're back to your old ways. All this is happening isn't because you're not good enough, you don't have enough time, resources, whatever we usually think it is. It always comes down to our identity. Our identity influences literally what we focus on, what we think, how we overall feel, how we take action in the world, our decisions. It literally influences everything that creates the results in our lives. So if you want new results, if you want long-term new results, you need a new identity. Here's an example of somebody who doesn't change their identity, but tries to change the results in their lives. Think of most people who try to lose weight. In weight loss, there's a 90% failure rate long term when people try to get that body fat off. The reason why, again, it's never because you're not good enough for time or all the excuses that we usually think it is and we make up. It's never that. I was a weight loss coach for about over 5 years, and I've helped over 500 clients transform their lives. And the biggest thing is that we don't change our identity. We try to rush the process. We try to skip the steps, and we follow the diet plans. We follow the quick fixes. The shiny object syndrome is what we call it. We jump from one plan to another, and you just try to change your actions temporarily to get new results. And yes, usually it works. We'll follow a diet. We'll lose the weight. We feel better, but then we stop. We go back to the old comfort zone. We start to self-sabotage. We lose motivation. We lose drive. We lose focus of the goal, and we're right back to square one over and over and over again. And the reason why that happens is because, again, they try to change their actions, but they're not changing the identity behind it. And if you don't change your identity, then naturally your actions, it's only going to go so far, because identity drives actions and behaviors. So if you try to change your actions, eventually you just self-sabotage, you burn out, you get stuck, and you're right back to square one. But if we change the identity, which is exactly what I did with my weight loss coaching company, if we can change the identity, then naturally the behaviors, the actions, the focus will come from that, and the results will follow as well. So, mistake number 1. The first mistake that I see when I coach my clients, when I'm doing these trainings, when I speak to people online in the world about their identity and transforming their lives, the first mistake that I see is forgetting that identity change is a daily practice. I spoke at my high school, the high school I went to growing up. I spoke to the kids there the other day about identity change and personal development and transformation. One of the biggest things I shared is how when you work on your mindset, when you're working on yourself, your identity, changing your life, it's like the gym. You don't go for a day and get new results. It's something that takes time. It's a daily practice that you have to implement over and over and over and over and over again. And as you roll the snowball down the hill, the snowball is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's exactly how this change works. What a lot of people do is they go to these events, and this is why a lot of people don't change their lives, even though they invest thousands of dollars into coaches, into programs, into events, is that they go to these events, they'll go to these seminars, they get charged up, they get really excited, they step into the new state of being that they want to be in, but then they go home to their lives and they get right back in the old environment, right back into the old thought process, right back into the old ways of being, and then they're right back to their old state, and they're stuck there over and over and over again, wondering why change didn't happen. And the reason why is because day one, you might have activated that new identity. You might start making a change, but by day 10, you're right back to your old ways. And the reason is simple. Your identity lives in your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is basically what runs your entire show in life. It is what controls 95% of things. Where your old trauma, your belief systems are. It's where your identity lives, where you naturally behave, your habits, your patterns. All of that lives in there. That's all recreating itself over and over and over again, your personal reality. When I say recreate, what I mean by that is that you typically repeat and do the same things. You think the same thoughts. You feel the same way over and over and over again for years and years and years and years. So this runs 95% of the show. So how do we expect to focus on the 5%, our conscious mind, which is the goal setting, the plan setting, the ones like, I'm going to make a change. How do we expect that small little piece to override the automatic process going on behind, which is our subconscious mind? We can't. So this is why it's so important to make this a daily practice, because if we don't make it a daily practice, eventually we go back into what we could call airplane mode, which is basically your automatic programming, and it's just going to repeat itself over and over and over again. Example, you ever talk to somebody who's like, I'm going to make this change, and you've heard them say it for maybe years, maybe months, and they keep talking about it over and over and over again. You see them taking action on a little bit, and eventually they're stuck or they stop, and it keeps going. It's because they are not even aware that they're stuck in that loop in the first place. They're not even aware of it. They're stuck in that old programming. So that's the first mistake, is thinking that it's a one shot and then you're good to go. It is a daily practice. Every single morning, I've been doing this work for many, many years. And every single morning, I always step into the state, the identity of the person I want to be, the person who's already at my goal, who thinks and feels that way, who acts that way. It's typically the number one thing that I do before my day starts. So, mistake number two. Mistake number two here, guys, is not rewiring the limiting beliefs that come to the surface. So this is probably going to be one of the most powerful lessons here today in this training. So as you start to change yourself, everything around you starts to change. Even the smallest change is a complete change. And that's one of the coolest things to think about. If you just change one small thing about yourself, one limiting belief, one pattern, one habit, that is a whole change in who you are. Now, as you start to make these changes in your life, here's what's going to happen. As you start to think differently and you start to feel differently and you have new desires and goals and you go on this path to do so, what's going to happen is old programming is going to rise to the surface. And this old program is basically it could be your ego, how your nervous system reacts with your body. It is going to be this old program that's going to try to drag you back to the comfort zone. And the reason why is because you're taking a path that is not familiar. You are genuinely changing, and the animal brain hates that. It hates that. It does not want the change. So it's going to throw all of its limiting beliefs, like your old limiting beliefs, are going to start to pop up and try to steer you back to the most familiar path. And it pops up in very sneaky ways that I'll give you a few examples here in a second. Your job is, as you change, so here's you with the new identity, and as you can see, this is a familiar path. This is a consistent familiar path. So there's not a crazy amount of resistance or old limiting beliefs that pop up because you're just following those beliefs over and over and over again. You're stuck in that old programming, we'll say. But as you change, you're changing the way you show up, how you make decisions, how you act. Old programming is going to rise to the surface because it's no longer in alignment with who you're becoming. For example, let's say you have a certain belief or let's say your desire is that you want freedom in your life, and you want a freedom style life. You want to be able to make money in a way that doesn't have to be so time intense. You want to be able to be more financially free. You want a better relationship with money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, when you want that path, it's totally doable. Somebody even wrote a book on it, The 4-Hour Work Week. It's totally doable to create that lifestyle. It's not common though, but it's totally doable. But most people have beliefs tied in that I need to spend time to make money. Money's very hard to make. I need to work very hard. So that's old programming. Again, it's all just programming that you can live off of. Both paths can work. So this is the common programming that most people live off of. If you change your belief systems around money and around, the things that you desire and what you want, and you change your belief systems, again, remember how the brain works is that it must find evidence in reality to reconfirm what you already believe to be true. So if you're changing these belief systems about yourself and you're chasing these new desires, as you go on that path, you might have resistance where, let's say, naturally your new state of being is like, hey, you know what? Today, what really feels aligned, or what I got to do today, is I got to just take a day off. I got to go to nature. I'm really feeling pulled that way. I'm feeling pulled in that direction. And again, you're coming from that right state. You're changing your identity, doing the things. That's kind of where your desire is leading you. When you do that, you might have old baggage, old program pop up that make you feel guilty. It's going to make you overthink. It's going to make you feel like you're not getting anything done, that you're on the wrong path. These are all negative thoughts, negative emotions that you can dissect, that you can reflect on. And underneath those negative thoughts and emotions, what you're going to find is limiting belief systems that are no longer serving the person who you actually want to be. If this is just an example, but if that's the person you do want to be, right? The free one, the one who's free, financially free, has a healthy relationship with money. They don't have to, you don't have a belief system where you have to work your guts out to make money. Maybe you completely changed it. So now you're thinking of new ways to make money that's more freeing for you, whatever it may be. You're operating at a whole different level. As you operate at a whole different level, that old baggage is going to rise to the surface. It's going to try to drag you back. The key is to not react to it. The key is to observe it, spot the negative thought patterns, spot the negative emotions, and then break down the beliefs behind those, because those are no longer serving you. They're no longer in alignment with where you want to go. So that's a huge, huge, huge key here. I'll give you one more example when it comes to not rewiring the limiting beliefs that come to the surface. So let's say, for example, you have a desire to date this specific person, and you start to change your identity. You start to walk around and activate this confident persona. And then as you're going about your day, you have these negative thoughts of like, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. Well, if that's the desire that you want, you probably need to believe that you are that way. So you come off that way, you're thinking and feeling that way, you approach them as that way, you're carrying that energy, we'll say. So as you are on this journey to get that desire, that goal, this limiting belief is going to pop up, this limiting program. It's going to pop up through negative thoughts, negative emotions, patterns, whatever it may be. Your job is not to react to it and identify with it, because when you do that, you collapse back to that same identity of someone who's not worthy, not good enough. Your job is to identify the limiting belief, so identify the limiting thoughts, identify the limiting feelings, and then rewire those. Let go of those limiting beliefs, those old belief systems that no longer serve you. Adopt a new belief system, step into that new state, that new identity, and then build off that. And that is one of the most important pieces as you go on your journey, is rewiring those limiting beliefs that no longer align with the identity that you're becoming. Because identity is simply just who you believe you are. So if you want to start believing that you are someone more than who you think you are now, that old limiting baggage is going to scream at you and fight you for survival. Someone needs to be sacrificed, though. You're either going to sacrifice the version of you who you can become, or you're going to sacrifice the version of you who you are now. And that's your decision. So that's mistake number 2, is not rewiring the limiting beliefs that come to the surface as you are transforming yourself. Okay? So next is mistake number 3. Now, mistake number 3 is you want the change too much. And this comes down to the idea, the law of detachment. When you come from a place of wanting something too much, what you're putting out is you will force the outcome to happen instead of flow. You might just go based off your old program and try to knit and grit your way to that thing, when there could be a complete easier and better path to get to where you want to go to change yourself. Next thing is, we always feel this need to constantly chase. We need it. We obsess over it. We're always checking the results. It's building anxiety and worry. What this is going to do is get you so stuck in your head, so worried, so overwhelmed, that you're going to lose your drive, you're going to lose your motivation. Or, for example, let's say if it's a person you want, a partner you want. When you come from a place where you need them too much, you're obsessed over them, you're needy, you're forcing, you're chasing, that person's going to run away from you, because they're not going to be attracted to that whatsoever. So the key here is You want to act, you want to adopt the identity, you want to be as if it's already done. What does that mean? That means that you show up, you act, you think, and you feel as if the result is happening here right now in real time. That's already yours. And then the detachment is when you let go of the how or when. You choose trust. You do your part. You focus on yourself. You focus on the things that you got to do. And you keep that rhythm going. And as you do that, the results will literally run to you. You will attract the results into your life. An example is, let's say you want a butterfly, okay? And you need the butterfly too much. You want it too much. What you're going to do is you're not going to think properly. You're not going to think outside the box on ways to actually attract the butterfly, actually how to get the butterfly the easiest way. Instead, you're just going to go chase after it. You're going to force it. You're going to obsess over it. You're going to think about it all the time, always chasing after it. What happens when you chase after a butterfly? It runs away or it flies away from you. But if you step into the new state, you detach from it, maybe you'll have an idea of like, hey, why don't I just build a garden? Why don't I just set up a flower? Then all the butterflies will come to me so effortlessly. What you're doing is you're stepping into that state as if it's already done and complete. So that's mistake number 3 is you want the change too much in your life. This was a huge thing for me when I was changing my identity and changing my belief systems. My animal side was so scared and freaking out and so panicked, and I was so desperate for results and just to see any kind of reflection that I was on the right path in my journey. And as I was on this journey, as I was changing myself and working on new belief systems and adopting this new identity, I was so desperate to find new results. And it was just constantly coming from this place of lack and desperation. It was just a crappy mess. But as soon as I let go of that and I just focused on being and becoming, everything shifted and very fast, like in a couple weeks, not even. Completely shifted how I was and how I am and how I showed up. So, mistake number 4. Mistake number 4, the last one for today, guys, is giving up in the void. This is the most common piece. Again, the void is basically the valley of despair, is when you're on your hero's journey, you're showing up day after day after day, you're putting in the reps, you're doing the work, and guess what? The results didn't show up yet. You've been in the gym for 3 months and you still don't see any results. You've put 2 years into your business. You're still losing money. You're still stuck and nothing is changing. You're posting every day for 6 months straight and you barely have gained any followers. You're not even at 1,000 followers. That's the valley of despair. That's when you are actively changing. You are not the same person you are before because you're starting to show up, act, and be differently, but you're still not at the result yet. You still don't have the actual results in your hands, the proof, the evidence, or at the full-on evidence, the full-on result, and you're in that middle space. Think of it like when a caterpillar or a little bug goes into the cocoon to become the butterfly, right? You're in the cocoon there and it completely melts apart, completely dissipates, but then it becomes this beautiful butterfly. However the process works, it's pretty crazy. That's the void. That's the void where you're following your path. You're becoming that person. You're shedding old programs, old beliefs, old operating systems, but your new results, your new life hasn't come into fruition yet. And this is where you need to keep moving forwards. You need to keep trusting. When you feel the fear and the uncomfortable feelings, it's not a sign that you're on the wrong path. In fact, it's probably a sign that you are on the right path because you're changing. And any change always comes with a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling because, again, the brain can't predict reality at this time. It's unpredictable. So you got to keep going. This is where most people give up, in that void. You need to keep trusting yourself. Keep paying attention to the people that you want to be like. This is a huge tip, is do not pay attention to people who don't have anything that you want because they're going to spill into you programming that just come from their past. People can only give you advice. They can only tell you what you can do based on what they believe they can do. They're just projecting from themselves. So you can't take that personal. When someone tells you you can't do something, you're not good enough, whatever it may be, just remember that they're just spilling something of what they believe to be true about themselves. Because anybody who already has what it is that you want, they're going to tell you that you can because they know you actually can do it. So don't pay attention to them, ignore them, focus on yourself, focus on where you want to go. Drown yourself in motivation and inspiration. Find idols and mentors and people just like you and study them. Practice being like them. Talk to them if you can and just keep going. Do not give up because if you do keep going, Literally, if you keep acting in the direction you want to go, you will make progress in that direction. And if you just give it enough time, you will have the results. It's like you plant a seed into the ground and there's that period of time where it's like, I see no growth. I don't know what's happening underneath the surface, even though that seed is now sprouting and growing its roots, but you don't know that. But you just got to do your job. Water it, nurture it, take care of it, keep the bugs away. And as long as you do your job in time, it's going to grow into a beautiful plant, a beautiful flower. And that is the training for today, guys. If you are a driven creator, a business owner, an entrepreneur, a high achiever, and you are stuck right now in your identity, you cannot seem to break through a plateau, you're struggling with self-sabotage, fear, and doubt, and you feel like there's so much more to you, but you're held back, Beyond Identity is probably for you. Beyond Identity Collective, you can apply down below for our coaching. And make sure that you like and subscribe for more. If you like this training, if this did help you, leave a comment on what hit home the most. And I'll see you guys on the next training.